Hello and welcome to Wisconsin in Focus, powered by the Center Square. I'm JD Davidson, the Center Square Midwest Regional Editor. Joining me today is Ben Yount, Wisconsin contributor for the Center Square. Ben, how are things?
Well, I'm still trying to put together the NFL championship weekend menu. It's going to be a little warmer this weekend, so I may be able to get out the grill. I really have sort of a taste for fried tacos. You know, you make them up and you put them and you seal and you fry. But I don't know. I'm going to need a day or two on that one. I'm going to need a day or two to finish off that menu.
Well, and to recover from the Packers' loss, and then the Bucs lose fire a head coach, and less than 24 hours later, we got a new one.
Yeah, the Bucs lost that head coach like you lose a gift that you didn't like. Oh, I left that behind. Oh, I'm so sorry. You can go ahead and keep that. Yeah. There was a celebration in the old town. And look, you would think that the Bucs were 13-30 as opposed to 30-13, but hey, you know what? Look, Boston and the 76ers are not just going to fall over because Giannis shows up and looks really cool in the city uniforms.
No, and I was listening to a lot of sports talk radio yesterday, and they were discussing that firing, and it was kind of odd, you know, one of the best records in the East. But you also have Doc Rivers sitting out there, and we might as well go ahead and try to grab a championship when we can get it.
Yep. This is the window.
Well, we are recording this on Thursday, January 25th, 2024. As promised last week, and likely the week before, and most likely for next week, legislative maps and redistricting continues to be in the news in Wisconsin. This week, Republicans apparently came up with a new strategy I assume they hope will combat a Democratic governor and Supreme Court. Ben, what happened this week?
Well, the legislature tried something. I think that's the best way to put it. And we started hearing about this Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. I want to say maybe it was Monday night, Tuesday morning, when all of a sudden the Senate was going to vote on an Iowa-style commission. And then right before the vote, that got changed, and it was, well, the Senate is going to adopt Tony Evers' maps. Remember, there are 7 different versions of a proposed legislative map here in Wisconsin, and the strategy behind this was adopt the governor's map. One, it does the least harm to Republicans. It makes sweeping changes, but some of the other maps are even more radical, according to the Republicans. What you do by adopting the governor's map is you short circuit the Supreme Court. Now there's agreement between the governor and the legislature. So where's the role for the court to draw its own maps? Or you force the governor to veto his own maps. The map that he drew, the map that he said is fair, the map that he said represents the will of the people. And so once conservative Twitter was able to wrap its head around the strategy, there were many who embraced it. There were a lot who still didn't, holding out hope for some sort of miracle fix. The trouble is that the maps that the Senate first, then the Assembly passed make slight changes. You know, move the boundary here or there, mostly to put incumbent Republicans back in their district. But those slight changes have given Democrats at the Capitol and the governor himself the excuse to say, nope, these aren't my maps. These are gerrymandered once again, and to promise a veto. But the changes are very, 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 very small when you look at the totality of the map. But, you know, when you're drawing specific legislators out of specific districts and you change that, it kind of does change the point of what the governor was trying to do with his maps.
Sure. And it makes sense that, you know, in this case, he would come out and say, no, I'm going to veto those maps. What I find rather interesting would be is if the Assembly comes back and if Evers' maps were the least damaging of the 7 to Republicans, and they feel like they have no other choice, I wonder what would happen if they came back and just approved his maps 100%, if he would still go ahead and sign.
As is. Well, and this was the point that Robin Vos, the Republican Assembly Speaker, made. about taking the 99% map, as it's going to be called. Why on earth would Democrats not accept 99% of what they want and just take the win? And it was really interesting to hear his thinking as he explained it on the floor of the assembly.
What possible reason, as you sit here and think about it, or you're listening at home, would there be for people to not accept 99% win? What would the reason be? Because they believe the fix is in with the Supreme Court. They believe the court is so partisan and so bought for and so influenced by the $10 million that was given to one of the justices, they're going to do whatever bidding they want. They can't take 99% for a win because they are certain the court's already going to give it to them. How embarrassing is that for our system if we have so little respect for the court that all we're going to do is accept the fact that they're going to do their political bidding?
Why don't you take 99% as a win? Because you're going to get at least 100 or maybe even 110%. That's the thinking. And that really gets to where we have been for years with this legislature and this governor, that, government is not to sound all sort of schoolhouse rock pie in the sky. Government is supposed to be based on cooperation. That's why you have an assembly and a Senate, or a House and a Senate and Congress. That's why you have three branches of government. The idea is you're supposed to build support, give a little, get a little, and at the end of the day, you have a law, a proposal, a something that most people agree on, most people support, and should do good for the state. When it comes to the political map, the upside of winning it all is so much bigger than the downside of losing that for Democrats in Wisconsin, they see no need to compromise. They see no need to get 99 point something percent when they can get even more. They see no need to say, all right, we'll have a map that gives us more fair races, when they can use the map to humiliate legislative Republicans, which they have been dying to do for over a decade. And so, yeah, what would happen if the Republican legislature came back and said, all right, we'll agree to Tony Evers' maps as is? I imagine that you would still have an excuse from Democrats to say, no, we want the court to do this because the court may be far more generous than even what the governor dreamed up.
Yeah, that's so interesting and something I would almost love to see play out there. I don't see the excuse not to accept one of your own maps in totality. I can understand having the excuse if some of it was changed, but in totality, why put them out there if you're not going to accept it?
Yeah, this is why, this is why elections matter. This is why Wisconsin's race for Supreme Court was a $50 million affair, that the stakes here are so high, and, winner takes all. To the victor go the spoils. If you want to see what controlling the map does, take a look at Illinois, where Democrats have drawn the past three, and they have drawn the Illinois Republican Party into a super minority party, almost irrelevant in the state. Tony Evers would love to have the kind of power that Illinois' governor has, that California's governor has, that New York Democrats have. And so, yeah, this is a transformative year in Wisconsin. And by this time next year, we could be dealing with a vastly different reality.
That's all the time we have right now. Listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com. For Ben Yount, I'm JD Davidson. Thanks for listening, and please subscribe.
Enjoying our podcast? Your reviews help other listeners find our show. Please leave us a review on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you listen.